saving up your hard-earned money to buy a piece of land. You hand over this massive cash advance, you and the seller sit down, shake hands, and sign a paper agreement.
Sounds like a done deal, right?
Right. But skip forward a bit, and the seller just ghosts you. They refuse to hand over the property.
Oh, man. Yeah.
So you take them to court, demanding justice. But the judge takes one look at that signed paper and says, well, sorry, this doesn't have an official government registration stamp. I can't even look at this.
And just like that, your money and the property completely vanish. I mean, it sounds like a total breakdown of the system.
Exactly, which is why we're doing this deep dive today.
Yeah, this is the exact 25-year nightmare that a buyer in a 2025 Supreme Court case walked right into. The case is MuruganandamVMuniyandi, and it all started back in January 2000.
25 years, wow.
Yeah, he paid his advance, got the signature, but, well, he skipped the formal registration. And when the seller backed out, the lower courts just threw his case in the trash.
Okay, so let's unpack this, because I'm trying to wrap my head around it. If I buy a used car, and the guy scribbles a receipt on a napkin, that's still proof of a transaction.
Right, exactly.
So why would a missing official stamp completely erase a real-world real estate deal?
Well, the strictness actually comes from a pretty vital place.
Huh.
The lower courts were relying on Section 17 of the Registration Act.
Okay, so what does Section 17 actually do?
It acts as this ruthless gatekeeper, basically to prevent fraud. Because, real estate isn't a used car, the government needs an absolute ironclad public record of who owns what.
To stop people from, selling the exact same plot of land to 5 different buyers.
Precisely. So because of that, Section 17 mandates that any document transferring property rights must be officially registered, period.
Okay, so without that stamp, the lower courts just treated the agreement like it was written in invisible ink.
Yeah, basically.
But if Section 17 is that rigid, how did the Supreme Court step in here? Did they just decide the anti-fraud rule was, too harsh?
Not quite. I mean, they didn't ignore the rule, they just read the rest of the rule book. The Supreme Court zoomed out and looked at Section 49.
Section 49, what's that about?
So Section 49 governs what actually happens to unregistered documents. And the main text agrees with the lower courts. You cannot use an unregistered document to prove you legally own the land.
Right. Makes sense.
But hidden right at the end of that section is something called a proviso.
A proviso? Wait, is that like a built-in statutory loophole?
I'd call it more of a highly specific statutory exception. This proviso states that an unregistered document actually can be used as evidence, but only to prove a contract exists in a suit for specific performance.
Okay, let me pause you right there. A suit for specific performance. That's when you sue someone to force them to follow through on a promise they made.
You've got it. See, the Supreme Court pointed out that the buyer wasn't walking into court claiming, hey, this unregistered paper proves I own the land today.
Oh, I see.
Right. He was arguing, this paper proves the seller promised to sell me the land, and I want the court to make him honor that contract.
Oh, wow. Here's where it gets really interesting. So the main rule basically locks the front door. But this proviso acts as a hidden back door just to prove the deal was discussed.
Exactly. It allows the document to be used purely as evidence that a conversation happened.
But wait, if the judge looks at it, did the buyer just automatically win?
No, and this is the core distinction the Supreme Court made. It's actually brilliant. They drew a hard line between admissibility and validity.
Admissibility and validity. Break that down for me.
So admissibility is simply a procedural hurdle. It just means the judge is legally allowed to physically accept the document, put it on their desk, and consider it as evidence.
So what does this all mean? Admissibility is basically just getting your ticket scanned at a stadium. It gets you through the gates and into the stands.
That is a great way to visualize it. Just getting into the stadium doesn't mean your team wins the game, right?
Right, obviously.
And that is where validity comes in. Validity is what happens during the trial. Once the document is admitted, the buyer still has to do all the heavy lifting.
Like proving it's real.
Exactly. They have to prove the signature isn't forged, that the money actually changed hands, and that the agreement itself is legally binding.
Okay. So the burden of proof is still entirely on the buyer. Admitting the document doesn't guarantee a win. It just guarantees you actually get to play the game in court.
Yes. Which touches on this really profound philosophical principle. The Supreme Court is sending a loud message that procedural technicalities, like a missing registration stamp, shouldn't prematurely lock a citizen out of the justice system.
Right. Because the courts are there to find the truth, and you can't find the truth if you refuse to even look at the evidence.
Exactly.
Let's bring this down to the ground level, because the stakes here are pretty massive.
They really are.
So for anyone navigating a property deal, the glaring lesson is to just get your agreements officially registered. I mean, do not rely on statutory escape hatches unless you want to spend 25 years in grueling litigation.
Yeah, nobody wants that. But simultaneously, and this is crucial, never throw away your old unregistered paperwork.
Even if a deal goes sideways.
Especially then, even if that unstamped piece of paper feels completely legally useless, this case proves it might be the absolute only lifeline you have to keep your case alive.
And for the legal professionals tuning in, I guess mastering the nuances of exceptions, like that Section 49 proviso, is what separates a case getting tossed on day one from actually getting its day in court.
100%. You have to understand that fundamental difference between simply getting a document admitted and actually proving its contents.
Right. It's all about keeping the doors of justice open long enough to actually make your argument.
Precisely.
Which leaves me thinking about the sheer power of an old, unstamped piece of paper from 25 years ago.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Right. If something that informal holds enough hidden legal weight to completely salvage a property dispute, what other seemingly informal records, scribbled notes or forgotten emails in your everyday life might unexpectedly become your only shield in a future crisis?